Hello, everyone. We are 20 minutes into this class, and I just realized what I did. I started filming this on YouTube live and found out that it was on my personal channel, not on the school channel. So I'm going to see about copying that and moving it over to this side so you can get the first 20 minutes of that class. If it doesn't come through, we will re-video it and do it again. I apologize for the inconvenience on that. For those of you that were trying to watch us for 20 minutes and we weren't here, I'm really sorry. What we're working on today is a couple of techniques from Fior. These actions are in the grappling in the one-handed sword section. It can be done with a one-handed sword. It can also be done with the hand and a half by taking your left hand off. As a general rule, when Fiore is showing the two people with their swords crossed and they're in sword distance, they're working with their right foot forward. But as soon as, and that can be in here as well, because I'm still in sword distance, so I have my right foot forward. But as soon as I make that, where I'm going to come in, I'm going to grapple, my left hand, my left foot is forward, help support my left hand. And the action we're working on today is against a thrust in the Getty manuscript. It is on plate 21 recto, 21R on the Getty manuscript. These can be found on Lichtenauer.com, I believe it is, .com or .org. I'm going to put a link to the website into the description so that you can go and you can take a look at these. Lichtenauer is a wonderful service and a great place to research multiple styles, multiple martial arts, in whether it's Italian, German, Spanish, French. Great website. As a recap of what we were doing, this action is a thrust. I'm starting in open iron door with my right foot forward, and look at where my right foot forward, my sword is in front of my leg, it's not behind my leg. So if I'm standing here like this, it's not here, it's here. So you can see it's giving me that protection. I start in open iron door, my right foot forward, thrust comes in, do it on this side. See how deep that's penetrating? That will go in the middle of my skull. If nothing else, it's going to slow them down. If you stab somebody in the face and it goes that deep and it only slows them down, they can rest. So the first thing I want to do is get out of the way. So I'm in the middle of my body. So my footwork is going to start with a Fior di Battaglia. Now at this point, he's hitting me on the shoulder. And that's okay, because I have not incorporated my shoulder. I've taken it out of my body, and he's just hit me on the outside of my shoulder. I don't mind when we test distance and placement to get stabbed in the shoulder, and this is only for testing, and that's because I have not incorporated my weapon yet. If you are getting stabbed in the shoulder like that, and you have incorporated your weapon, you need to reevaluate your foot. Whenever you run into a problem, whatever that problem might be, first and foremost, check distance. If you fix distance, it will fix almost any problem you might run into in the fight. So I'm starting an open iron door. Well, the thrust comes in. I come to the middle iron door with a Fior di Battaglia. My foot is still off the ground, and I'm on my false edge on his blade. both hands on my sword. I don't need to push him out, because then, if I push him away from me, he's just going to roll around and pummel me or do something bad to me. So I don't want to push him away. All I want to do is close the line and move him out of my silhouette. Then as my toe goes down, my left hand comes off, and I don't move my sword. I have this position here. And if you look at the manuscript, that's about what you're seeing in the manuscript. Again, as stated previously, when I'm capturing his arm, I am not C-cupping his arm. I'm not putting my thumb around it. Let's come closer and do that again on this page. Go ahead, yeah, over here. If I C-cup and I put my thumb into his elbow and I push him, I push his arms out of the way, but he can still step into me or do something, whatever you want. And so he still has the advantage of mobility. Let's do that again. This is the same thing. Going around, go ahead. You can see how easily he pushes me off balance. If, on the other hand, I do it like the master says, and I keep my thumb with my fingers or just on the top of his arm. Right? I'm here. As I come forward, I'm going to just rest my thumb, so my thumb tip is pushing or resting right above his elbow. Then as I just sit down into it, I move him out of the way. And now let's do that off the thrust. Okay, we'll do it here. It's not the footwork. I want to see. Check measure. Check measure. Be a little close. That's really close. For that. Nice pattern. So this comes in. And there is our action. Again. Check measure. Now, if you look at our sword, you'll notice that my true edge quillen is facing towards him. My false edge quillen is away from him. When we look at the manuscript, we see the same thing. So I'm this guy right here. You'll notice his true edge quillen is longer than his false edge quillen. That's because the false edge quillen is further away from the artist than his true edge quillen. That tells us the angle of his blade. When we look at his leg, you'll notice that the leg with the garter is a slightly smaller diameter than the leg with the shadow. The garter represents which leg moved last, and the size of the leg tells us that it's slightly further away from the artist than the other leg. The other thing we see is on this picture, if you look at his hand, you can see his thumb is on top of the guy's arm. He's not wrapped around it. And when we look at the Pisani Dossi, the same technique in the Pisani Dossi, you can see his thumb right on top of the other guy's arm as well. And that's that little bump shadow thing that's on top of the arm. So he's not wrapping around the arm. What I like to tell everybody in my classes is that if you are working hard at doing this, you're doing it wrong. It should be in such a way that you don't need to work. It just kind of falls into place. In fact, if it feels too easy to be right, probably right. We are 30 minutes into this class, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for another 20 minutes and put these up. And I apologize for not being in a place where you all could join me live, but these will still be there for you. So if we take the same action, we start here. I come through, I cover that, I hold up, just do it again. One like that. Now, run that soul. That's what I was referring to, about you want to keep it that close. Then, as soon as I use my finger, I'm going to do this. Right next to my shoulder. You can see my palm is on his shoulder. As I get that over, my hand comes off, I turn my sword, and I can cover that up. Look at where he pushes out of play. Now I have the ability to easily come through and do other things, which is going to take us into our next action. And our next action is a throw. So the next one we're doing, and this one I find very, very interesting. Oh, no, my bad. No, we're not doing the throw. We're going to step on his sword. So we are going to be doing this action right here. So we've come in, we've put our hand on his elbow. He moved, and so we're going to step on his sword and push his arm out of the way. Now, there's something really interesting about this picture. In the Getty, Fiore says, "This opponent struck at my head, and I beat his sword to the ground, coming to the position you see depicted here. Now, after forcing you to turn away, I will aggressively wrap my sword around your neck." And this is translated by Colin Hatcher on Wiktenauer. The Pisani Dossi for this same play says, "Either your sword is bent or it is broken, and I can strike you from above or below with mine." This is where we get back into the artwork. When we look at the artwork of the Getty, we see his hand right here. And if you look close at his hand, you can see how much of his fingers, and he has 5, looks like he has 6 fingers if he's put his thumb around the guy's wrist. But that tells us that he does not put his thumb around the wrist. Instead, what he is doing is what I like to call the monkey paw. So you can see, this is a close-up of that same picture. He's got his thumb on the same side as his fingers, but he's not around, he's monkey paw. So if we look at how this position affects our opponent, if I've got his wrist, I've stepped on his sword, and I put my thumb around his wrist, went forward, he can move me around. And if I push him, I can get to that position. I can't go any further because my body's in the wrong place. If I put my thumb on the same side as my fingers, but I put my fingers around his wrist, I can go further, but watch his body. I twist him, but that's about it. If I put my fingertips on his arm, and that gives me that bend, I move his whole body. Let's look at that again. And I want you to try this at home with somebody. Don't take my word for it. I'm not making this stuff up. Try it with somebody at home. See how it affects them. So, with my thumb around his wrist, I get there, and that's as much as I get. With my thumb on the same side as my fingers, I can push him further, but I don't upset his structure. If I make a monkey fist, I push him out of the way. It's like magic. Jory was amazing. The things these people knew. But let's look at why. Not just the how, but the why. And this is my interpretation of why. There may be people with better physiological understanding than me and can break it down better, but this is what I see happen. If I've got my thumb around his wrist, I've now incorporated the muscle and the tendon on the inside of my arm, and I can only reach as far as my arm goes across my body, which is really not very much. If I put my thumb on the same side as my fingers, but I still go around his wrist, so I'm give me a punch. It's that kind of action where I'm just resting on it that we see in other systems. I'm not doing that either, because if I get there and I do that, I can push him further, but I don't break his structure. However, if I put my fingertip tips on his arm and I do this monkey fist and I break I'm not breaking my wrist, I'm actually strengthening my wrist. The reason I'm strengthening it is I lock all those little bones that are in my wrist into place, and when I push him, his shoulder moves. Watch his shoulder right here. So with my thumb around, watch his shoulder. No real movement in that. With my thumb on the same side, there's more rotation, but no up and down. If I put myself in that monkey grip and I do the same push, let me get that guy away. There's movement in that arm. And I push it out of the way. And so when we take that to the sword, John gives me because he says he attacked my head. And that can be, he doesn't say how he attacked me. We're actually going to go with the same action of thrust to my face. This is something that will work in and out of armor. At this period in time, the most common type of helmet was called the bassinet. And it could be a clap visor, a hound skull, a pig face. But once they got in tight fighting, they kept the face down for the joust, the initial hit with the lance. But as soon as you got in, you pulled the pins and threw the faceplate down because you needed to be able to have peripheral vision as you were fighting. But this means your face is open. And as we all know, the face, if you're going to put somebody down, face is the best place to go. So if he throws a thrust at my face, I'm not going to do it. There's that thrust comes in at my face. I come through, set that down. I come this way to do that other action that we were doing here. But he steps back. I cover it, and monkey it, and run. And your sword will be broken or bent, as the Pisani Dossi says. Or I can go into what the Getty says. I'll show you that one. Okay, good. Measure, measure. See how deep that's going to go in my face? That's going to be a good long strike. So, comes in, I'm not going to look for my throat this time. I'm not going to look. This is the attack coming in, but going up just a little bit higher. I won't even be at my throat. That's pretty much the same thing. So he goes his attack. I cover. I step forward. He steps back. I monkey step and push him on the leg. And I can easily get it around his neck. This is where we can start discussing his choices. Let's discuss this. Good. Good. So as we're doing these actions, we have to realize that on our grip, on our swords, our hand is constantly moving around on our pommel. We're never locked into any one position. That is also true on my opponent's body. I'm never only trying to grab him. I'm never only trying to just control him. Sometimes I'm moving my grip around to manipulate how he moves. And if I'm here, you can see if I'm wrapping around his wrist, my wrist is straight. As soon as I multiply, get that other angle into it. And it's that locking my wrist in place that does the job. Because I switched my lead foot. And as soon as I move my feet around, I change the movement. Step back, step on it, look, I'll do whatever I want. Yeah, look at this position here. Yeah. We go to the manuscript, and we look at the manuscript picture. There's that same action. Now we really wanted to get a look at the hand, so I did a close-up of it. It's not a very good close-up because it's pixelated. But when you look at this, look how long his fingers are. That tells us that he's not just wrapping around his opponent's wrist. He's got his fingers out like this, resting on his arm. And you can count his fingers. He has 5 fingers there. That means his thumb is on the same side as his other fingers. We can do this against a thrust, but we can also do this against a cut. Fiore says in the Getty that, let me get to the right piece. In the Getty, he says, this opponent struck at my head. Doesn't say if it's a thrust or a cut. And I beat his sword to the ground, coming to the position you see depicted here, which is this one. And I am using, again, Colin Hatcher's description. And, Colin Hatcher's translation. So let's look at that as if it was a cut at my head, not a thrust. And this is what we get. I'm going to start in the same place. There's the attack on that. I no longer have a helmet on. Now he's cutting at my head. Let's go slow. I'm going to stop while we do it. I see this action happen. I go to the middle iron door with the tuca volta. My toe is still up off the ground. I find him in short guard. That takes him outside my body. But he's smart. I'm going for this push. He steps back, so I just keep him down, step on him. It's not good. Then I get his division. Step on the sword. So he can let go of his sword and get away. But really, really hard. We're going to put down swords. I want to show you this a little bit more at speed. Are you okay with that? So we're going to lose our swords so that there's no danger for this. After we put that on. So he's going to come in at me and he's going to simulate a cut. So, okay. Good. I'm going to do my first action. Ready? Go ahead. I did that. And look where I end up, right at his elbow. No, wait, no. Stay. One more time. Good, good. And I did that. There's the push, and I can do whatever I want. But now, he's gonna, as soon as he realizes he missed, you've got to let his hands come down so that he can understand that he did it. Then he's gonna step back. Do it slow to start off with. And then pick up the speed. And that's I'm moving out of the way. Right? Now, on that one, I ended up with my right foot forward. That step down the shoulders. I forgot to take my last step on that. So now I'm going to add that. And that's where we end up. Now I've got that monkey fist. My wrist is bent. I'm got control of this whole body. Last week we had mentioned that if you have a question about a technique and whether or not it's a viable technique, don't do it at full speed in distance with swords. Do it at full speed with swords out of distance. Or as we just did, because we needed to grapple, we did it at speed without swords because we were looking at this action. So I want to thank you very much for joining me. I'm going to combine this class, this half hour, with the previous half hour. So this class is actually broken into two different parts. I want to thank you very much for joining us here at the Davenridge European Martial Arts Backyard. Always a pleasure to see you. I hope you enjoy this class. And until we are able to train in person, take care of yourself. Thanks, everyone.